And welcome, everyone. You are tuned in to Full Press Hockey Weekly. I'm Mike Straw, as always, joined by Chris Wassel and Jim Behringer here on Twitter.com, Twitch.tv/Full Press Coverage, YouTube.com, Facebook.com/Full Press Hockey, and wherever you want to tune in. I mean, we're everywhere. That way, no one can say they missed the show. Jim, Chris, we took last week off because of the holiday, so I'll start. How was your Thanksgivings?
Mine was good. I ate a lot. I played a little hockey on Thanksgiving. Had a nice celebration over the weekend, Hanukkah. So you know what? It was good. I had a great weekend.
How about you, Chris?
You know, I mean, it's what everybody expects from Chris when there's Thanksgiving. There's a boatload of food. Chris eats it all. Then people wonder where it goes. Then he goes over to other places, eats even more food, eats an insane amount of turkey. Look, my sister-in-law was nice enough to give me a bag. Now, I did not think that this was all that big at first until I went to lift the thing, and it was probably about 7 or 8 pounds of just straight legs, wings, and turkey breastbone. So it was basically like 2/3 of the darn turkey.
Yeah.
I ate it in one day. It was gone.
Sounds delicious. Actually, I'm not a big fan of turkey, so I can't say it sounds delicious.
It was actually quite good. I mean, it was brine. She put it on the grill at the end. Came out great. All that fun stuff. But all in all, look, the most important thing is it was a good holiday spent with great people. And then I got to laugh at the Rangers and Bruins play hockey because I refuse to watch that gong show until somebody at ABC or whoever puts on different teams instead of watching the same crap all the time.
To be fair, it's not the same crap all the time from ABC because this is the first game on ABC.
I know, but I've seen it from ABC, from the
NBC.
Other
yeah, it was always I'm just as my biggest happiness is that it's not the Chicago Blackhawks network anymore, which is what we had. Any Comcast team during the NBCSN days.
Wait, Comcast? What?
Comcast?
Yeah, where Comcast coming? I mean, I haven't seen a legal stream of my team since last year.
Yeah. It's crazy because it's funny you mention that game because originally that ABC game was supposed to be Chicago Blackhawks and St. Louis Blues. So that's kind of funny.
Well, good thing it's not this time around.
No, I know.
So we have a big show today. Obviously, there's a lot of news to get to. We'll get into the bite heard around the world, the sale of the Penguins, the future of the Montreal Canadiens, NHL and COVID continuing to be a mess. But we're going to start off, and this is something new we're going to do every week because we can't get to everything we want to talk about with a weekly show. But there's a lot of news that people might have missed over the last week, and a lot of news over the last couple days. So here's what you missed, and we're going to start with the big news today that dropped. Not only is he returning to play after being out since mid-October, but Jack Hughes, for the two Devils guys here that join me every week, has signed an 8-year, $64 million extension. The 2019 number 1 overall pick. He commits to New Jersey. The team commits to him. You guys have followed his career. You guys are in and out of there constantly. We'll start with you, Jim. Real quick, what was your first reaction to this news?
A lot of money for 119 games. Guy's injury prone, but you know what? He's the franchise player. This is who they expected to be. This is just a projection. And the fact of the matter is, he gets to hit it big at the end of this contract again.
What about you, Chris? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, that's a pretty good deal. I mean, you think about it, he's going to basically hit like his prime at the very end of this deal. That's not bad. I mean, this is all gravy for him at this point. 8 years, $8 million AAV. I know people say, well, yeah, he's been a little bit banged up, this and that, and whatever. He's had some misfortunate bumps and bruises. I think as he bulks up over the next year or two, that's going to become less and less of an issue. And if the Devils can ever find a defenseman that can skate forwards and hit at the same time, I know it's asking a lot.
Yeah, right.
I think he'll also be just fine. So it's nothing to worry about in that sense. It's nice to have players that are committing to Jersey for a change. It's refreshing in that way, and that's how you really do have to look at it. And James Reimer sucks.
I mean, we knew that from his Toronto days, but
I know.
well, we could talk about that another day. Another story that broke over the weekend is Brandon Marchand being suspended 3 games for a slew foot. Not surprising there. No one expected him not to get suspended. Repeat offender with everything he does. And he is out. And then Evander Kane, off his 21-game suspension for violating NHL protocols, he cleared waivers, and he actually reported to the Barracuda. Granted, you don't have to leave San Jose, so it's nice. But he reported to the Barracuda. He will be playing with them, expected to at least, and no idea of what's going on with his NHL status. We are going to keep updated on that. But right now, the Sharks are playing fine without him. They're doing a lot better than anybody thought, and there's no need to bring him back into this mix because he denies there's a rift with the organization, but based on responses that there's a rift within that organization. So it's not surprising in the slightest that he's not back with that team.
Yeah, no surprise, really. I mean, this guy, everywhere he's been, has some issues within the locker room with teams. You look at, I mean, just go back to the infamous money photo hanging it up like a phone against his ear. I mean, that doesn't go over too well with your teammates, and this whole thing as well as the other off the ice issues with him. So
exactly. So now let's get into the big stories of the week. We're going to start in Ottawa, and it's 2021, not the mid 90s, but we have a Tkachuk Lemieux incident. And it is Brandon Tkachuk and Brandon Lemieux. I don't even know where to begin with this, to be honest. Like, I'm trying to think of the words I want to say. So we're just going to go into what happened. During an Ottawa Senators LA Kings game, Lemieux allegedly bit the finger of Bradykitchuk. Not Brandon Tkachuk. Brandon, Brady, same thing. B names. You know. You see his hand, and it's all cut up. And it clearly looks like he was bit, and he's complaining. Before we get into it, I'm gonna read what he said here after, courtesy of, this site, fullpresshockey.com. You can get your latest NHL news and notes and feature stories from there every day. Tkachuk, critical of the incident post-game. Quote, "I think it was the most gutless thing somebody can ever do. Not even children bite." Yes, they do, but that's another story. This guy, you can ask any one of his teammates. Nobody wants to play with him. This guy, he's a bad guy, bad teammate. Focuses on himself all the time. The guy's a joke. He shouldn't effing be in this league. The guy's gutless. No other team wants him. He's going to just keep begging to be in the NHL because no team is going to want him. This guy's just an absolute joke. Just a bad guy. It's gutless. I can't really wrap my head around it. Children don't even do this. This guy is just a bad guy and not even a good player either. And then he added, "It's outrageous. Kids don't do this anymore. Babies do that. The fact that he decides, I don't know what he's thinking. Nobody does that. He's a complete brickhead. Bad guy, bad player. He's got nothing up there. He's got a couple of more years. It's ticking for him. Nobody wants him." So that is a bombshell of a quote. I wish more players would give bombshell quotes like that because it's absolutely fantastic. But I can't see, like, you watch the video back, you see everything. You can't argue what he's saying here. You don't go on this much of a tirade if it didn't happen. There's no way you make this up.
It's true.
And I think the key word here is gutless. Now, Brandon Lemieux is a player the Sabres originally drafted, and they traded him because he didn't want to play for Buffalo. So they traded him away. Okay. Dodged a bullet, I guess, on that one. Good job, Sabres, on that. But he's bounced around. He was with the Jets, Rangers, now the Kings. And it's hard to see. You can kind of see what he's getting at. He's on an NHL roster, but how long is he going to be an NHL player, especially if he gets this reputation? Like, players like Brad Marchand have a reputation for being a rat on the ice. just an instigating little fart that gets under your skin, but he's still a really good player. Claude Brandon Lemieux has the ultimate pest in a father of Claude Lemieux. But I don't recall ever, and Chris, maybe you could verify this, ever hearing a story of Claude biting someone.
There's been a lot of things that Claude has done, but biting, no. And no, there will be no bad Pac-Man chomp jokes here. No Pac-Man cereal jokes. None of those. I mean, that was a straight up bite. I mean, look, I still remember when Darian Hatcher bit a certain former devil, and I can remember interviewing a few devils, Zajac, Pandolfo, etc., and they're like, "Oh yeah, that was clearly a bite." I mean, but look, here's the thing in this, and I always find this funny. I like Bradykitchuk, for all the hits and the fantasy categories that he provides my fantasy team every week. But unfortunately, in this bombshell of a Twitter rant or quote, he contradicts himself at the very end of his entire rant. I mean, if you think about it, he says, okay, well, kids don't bite. But at the end, he says infants bite. Well, by
There's
semantics.
a difference, though. I don't call an infant a kid.
Yeah, but I mean,
there's
you
a
can
big
make
difference.
semantics out of this. You could play with you could at least play with the words enough to say, hey, all right, he contradicts himself a little bit. But let's be honest about this. He is absolutely right. Biting has no place in sports, and hey, we're supposed to give John his damn subscription button, so we need to apparently do that too.
Yeah, we gotta get that subscription button, but we have to get followers on Twitch, which is what we're working on to grow the Full Press Coverage Network. So make sure you're following on Twitch.
Yeah, that's
listening. Go to twitch.tv/Full Press Coverage and hit that follow so that we can every day. All of our shows, all of our video shows are broadcast on there, and we're working on taking all of our Full Press radio shows over there as well. So get on there. You'll get some more plugs.
So I mean, yeah, we'll throw that in too. But look, absolutely, I thought honestly, hey,
king shaming.
You know what? It's the 21st century. It's just a new time. Look, I'm surprised that nothing worse like this has happened in hockey this year, just because of everything that has gone on in the last year and a half or so.
You got to think, and Jim, before I pass off to you, it probably doesn't happen because there's not many players the likes of a Brendan Lemieux anymore. If you are a pest or an instigator type of player, you're also a very skilled player with a lot of the way the game is going. The two biggest examples to me right now, again, are Marchand, and in Calgary, you have Matthew Tkachuk. Matthew Tkachuk is that type of player, but he's got the prowess offensively to back it up.
It's true. It's 100% true.
100% true. I mean, look, I saw the incident Saturday night. It was crazy. I mean, you see a guy come out of the pile and you see his finger. And apparently it wasn't just one chomp. It was two chomps. Apparently,
there's no way he gets that much from one chomp.
Yeah. So apparently there were two chomps, and it's like Alex Burrows 2.0. Except Alex Burrows had talent, and he was also a pest. But it feels like there's some family thing going on with these two, because apparently, I guess back in the day, Claude fought Keith Tkachuk, so there's a family thing going on there. But Chris and I saw Brandon Lemieux out here when he was with the Rangers. I mean, he was basically just like a fourth line guy in and out of the lineup, and I think that's what he is for the Kings too. And I think, to engage a player like that's his job, to be a pest. But there's no reason to bite anybody in one of those scrums at all. No reason for it, and it's not part of the game of hockey. And Brady's right on all this, what he said in his rant, and it's the biggest thing out of this is gutless. You don't want to fight the guy or do any of that, and you have to resort to biting. The guy should be suspended at least for 4 games.
And speaking of suspensions, he is supposed to be having a hearing today via Zoom, but there's been no word on how that's gone. He has been suspended twice, though neither of them were for biting. One was a 2-game suspension for a cross check to the head. But we haven't heard anything. My guess is we'll hear something late tonight, early tomorrow about what. But yeah, 4 games I feel like is the minimum. But they offered him when it comes to the Zoom, an in-person hearing. So my guess, I'm thinking maybe closer, like 5 to 7 games I could see. Because that is, to me, as egregious of a move as you can make. There's instigating, and then there's being a scumbag. And that's exactly what a move like that just becomes to me, is a scumbag. It has no place in the game. We talk about a lot of things that have no place in the game as far as the on the ice product goes. That is as number one as it gets to me. There's hits to the head, there's checking to the numbers blatantly, and biting. Like, come on, man.
Yeah, you got to stoop to. If you stoop into biting, you shouldn't be in the league at all. I mean, that's not a pro move. That's not an NHL type move. You want to fight. You want to be out there like what Curtis Gabriel was doing last year with the fights and raising money for that. I got no problem with that. But you want to stoop to biting. I mean, that's child's play. That's stuff kindergartners do. And there's a reason why Lemieux was drafted where he was and where he is in the league, and potentially is just really just a good AHL player playing in the league right now.
Yeah, exactly. I don't see it coming anywhere anytime soon. He's not gonna, like, there's no way that the Kings look at this and go, yeah, this is a guy we want in our lineup. I honestly think the leadership there have a talk. It's one thing if you hit somebody or you catch somebody accidentally or whatever, like you're not intentionally doing it, but you don't accidentally bite someone.
No.
Especially in a situation like that. Like, we've seen where players like taunt and they're like, hey, bite me. We've seen that. This wasn't that case. This was the gloves off and he just bit him.
Yeah.
So there's not much more you can say other than get that out of the game, get him gone, and hopefully a long suspension will help. Moving on. The Montreal Canadiens. This franchise did finally what we all expected. Bergevin gone. We all expected it. They even got rid of the head of PR because he's a friend of Bergevin, so you just get a clean house. They put Jeff Gordon in place, former GM of the Rangers. A lot of people are upset that he's not actually just the GM, but for me, what did he do with the Rangers anyway?
I don't know. He did quite a bit. I mean, he kind of got railroaded because, well, God forbid, James
you don't make the playoffs.
What are the Rangers anyway? The Rangers aren't a team.
Well, the Rangers right now are just an overbloated, inflated team that's on one of the biggest PDO benders in the history of life.
Yeah, but anyway, we can literally have a whole episode to Rangers bashing if you want.
But apparently Gordon was helpful in what Boston did. He was integral in drafting players that led to the Cup in 2011 while Chiarelli was still finalizing stuff in Ottawa. He was getting word from Chiarelli on who to draft.
Yeah.
So, he's a good hockey mind. If there's somebody you want at the head of this thing in Montreal, he's the good hockey mind to have.
And you say he's the good hockey mind to have. And this is where I get into. So obviously, like me talking about, he's with the Rangers. That's just because I don't like the Rangers. But we know what he can do. He is hired to find the GM of the future while acting as the GM. And that's what rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. If you're going to do this, just make him the GM. But this is where it comes in with Montreal, because Montreal and French Canada land have this weird complex where if you don't speak French, you're not any good. We saw a big controversy when Randy Cunningworth was head coach. Oh, he didn't speak French, so he could have won 4 straight Jack Adams and 4 Stanley Cups in a row, and they still said he would have said he wasn't good enough because he didn't speak French.
Sure.
Just because Parlez-vous Français isn't, what they do. There's one team or 2 teams in Canada that have a French market, and that's Ottawa and Montreal right now. But Montreal, it's just the requirement of it really, really limits what's going. So it's like you have all these great candidates, but because of them wanting the ownership, wanting someone who speaks French, everything goes to this. And to me, and then I'll start with you, Jim. I don't see how Montreal can get better with this. And there are two names that are rumoring. One's interested in the other. Montreal seems to be interested in him. And I'll bring those up in a minute. But Jim, when you hear it's like, it's got to be a French speaking, they got to be bilingual. Do you kind of have that same thought that they're going to pigeonhole themselves again?
They always seem to pigeonhole themselves. Like, I understand the culture that is Montreal and Quebec City. And you mentioned Ottawa, but Ottawa doesn't seem to have that problem because they're Ontario-based and it's the capital and you have two languages. But there's a lot more English-speaking people in Ottawa than there is in Montreal and that area. However, I seen it with players. I seen it when they had the episodes on the NHL Network about players coming to Montreal. They can learn French. Why does it have to be a requirement? I understand you have half the press is in French and he needs to answer it. Why can't you just have a translator there like every other sport? It's not like a bad look.
Yeah, look at Japanese baseball players or Dominican baseball players. Look at mixed martial artists. Look at Swedish hockey players who don't really speak English that well. It doesn't matter. Are you good at your job?
Exactly. And Jeff Gordon is good at his job. And yeah, he'll be the vice president of hockey operations, and this general manager will work. They're going to work together, and they're going to build this whole department new again. And Jeff Molson said it doesn't have to be an experienced guy. It could be an inexperienced guy. But, the names that are out there, you almost got to wonder if it's just like, you know what? Let's just name, because it feels like Molson's going to do a majority of the work, and the general manager is going to just go out there and just speak about all the moves in French. Yeah, because Gordon's going to be running the show.
And Chris, I'll get to you right after you said the names out there. Two names that are circulating. We'll start with the one who said today that he'd be interested, and that's Patrick Waugh. I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole. Next. The other one is they seem to be interested, and the jump is really weird to me to go from where he's at to is Daniel Briere. So for those that don't know, Daniel Briere has been the GM of the Maine Mariners of the ECHL. Making that jump from the ECHL all the way to the NHL, unheard of, first of all. Though, and I just don't know, and into that market of all markets, oh no, I would feel so bad for him. But they seem to be interested in him. They seem to they're going to at least talk to him. We all know, like, when they're interested, they're gonna talk to him and see what comes of it. But Chris, when you hear those two names as like two, especially Briere's like the number one name that keeps floating out there right now at the beginning of this search. What comes to mind? Is this a, like, what are you doing, Montreal type of thing? Or is it a case of what Jim just said, which is a good point? You're just bringing in that guy as the French mouthpiece with the GM title, but Jeff Gordon, Jim, why do I keep calling him Jim Gordon? I got Batman on the mind, apparently. And you have Gordon basically running the show as far as building this organization.
And I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. I mean, especially for the first 1, 2, 3 seasons. If, Gordon's basically the guy and, Briere's learning on the job because, well, yeah, he's going to be jumping 2 levels essentially. And those are 2 pretty big levels to jump and into a market that is, well, quite possibly, as I kind of semi-know, one hell of a feeding frenzy.
I'm not going to call it a toxic market, but it can be a very toxic market.
It can be a little rough,
especially with how the team is going this year. Granted, they are the one team that has excuse after excuse, and understandably so.
Now I got to admit, Kyle has an interesting question in the chat. Does this resemble in any way the Lamoriello Dubas situation?
And you got to throw Shanahan into that mix because
because that's like a Frente bizarre love triangle type of thing. I never thought I would put that in this show, but it all came together at once. Look, as a person who was thrown into a lot of 90s and early 2000s club hits, yeah, that just made perfect sense. But it has a little bit of a similar feel to it, but everything is different in Montreal. And at this point, until we have something a little bit more concrete, we're all just spitting rumors in the wind, as Lyle Richardson put it to me this morning.
That's a good point. I mean, look, I'd like to touch on the Lamoriello thing though, because I felt all along when Lamoriello was hired in Toronto, he was just a figurehead. I thought it was just a team. It was a committee thing led by Shanahan with Dubas and Lamoriello involved. Lamoriello just went out there and announced everything, but all the decisions were being done as a group. Lamoriello was just there to be a figurehead, and before they decided to, you know what, Dubas is our guy. We're going to move on, and Lamoriello goes down to Long Island.
And before moving on, this is a situation with Montreal. We all knew Bergevin had to go. Like, that's not surprising in the slightest. But we were kind of hoping whoever comes forward could help. And what other name? I mean, we know names are out there, but English-only speakers. But if they do stick with that has to speak French mandate, what other names are out there as legitimate candidates for a position? Or do you, at the end of the day, see this as being an off-the-wall, out-of-nowhere hire?
I mean, if you stick with everything, it's probably going to be off the wall, out of nowhere. I mean, you hear names like Matthew Darche being, thrown around. A guy that would really do wonders for this team, but I don't know if he speaks French or not, is Jim Rutherford. That's a guy you want building the team. I mean, that tandem right there would be really good with Gorton and Rutherford working together as one. But it could be off the wall. I mean, did you see? I think Vincent Danfus came out and said he didn't want no part of this. He doesn't want to be considered for this position. So, look, it's going to be interesting to see who they hire and when they hire it, because you got a trade deadline coming up. You got a draft that's in Montreal this year. Interesting with the Bergeron firing is that you knew going into this season he didn't have a contract, and reports that they were working on something, stuff fell through, and you really didn't like Scott Mellenby either. Why didn't you just clean house and not let him do what he did in the summer and just move on from there?
I want to say I have an idea, but I can't say that I have an idea because no one really knows what Montreal does other than exactly. Montreal. Let's be real.
Yeah.
So moving on from Montreal, we're gonna save NHL and COVID for last because it just keeps getting worse and worse.
Yeah, it does.
The Penguins have officially new ownership as far as majority control. We talked about it a few weeks ago, Chris and I, while Jim was out watching a hockey game.
Scouting.
We'll go scouting for the show.
He was on assignment.
I was on assignment. That's the word.
But the Fenway Sports Group has completed or set to complete their purchasing agreement takeover as majority ownership of the Pittsburgh Penguins. No official finances were revealed, but I'm kind of expecting around the $900 million mark, which is about over what they were valued at. We'd expect that for the Penguins. We do know that Mario Lemieux and Ron Burkle will each keep minority stake, with Lemieux still having a say in the club's operation. We kind of knew, Chris and I talked about it. Chris mentioned Burkle. This is a way to get him out from having a say, but he's still going to keep a minority stake in it. So at the end of the day, you're still going to have a say whether you're a minority or majority. It's just not going to weigh as much. But he's still going to be around, and a lot of Penguins fans were kind of disappointed in that. But this isn't 1999 when Burkle and Lemieux saved this team from relocation. This isn't 2011 when Atlanta was bought by Winnipeg. This isn't Arizona where they have a new ownership like I have new underwear. This this is a stable team with a newer arena, with a 15-year playoff streak, one of the greatest players of all time on their roster still, if not two of the best and pure scorer of Evgeny Malkin, or one of the best pure scorers of Evgeny Malkin, one of the best Russian players ever. But do you think any major changes come out of this? And we all know, based on watching them with the Red Sox, they're not afraid to spend a lot of money. So I don't think they're going to go and pinch pennies with this organization. Otherwise, they don't buy it. So do we really see any major changes coming out of this sale? Or is this just, hey, now there's new ownership and it's status quo?
I think it's just status quo. I mean, you may see them. I mean, the Penguins have always been an aggressive team when it comes to making moves anyway. I mean, even before Rutherford left, he was making moves way before the trade deadline. I think this is what you're going to see with Hextall and Brian Burke. It feels like it's the new wave of ownership for teams and everything. Like, we see this around, other sports as well. Like, you're just buying up commodities in different businesses, so you own it. Like Fenway's got most. And the most interesting thing is they went to Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment first before they went to Pittsburgh Penguins. So imagine what that deal would have looked like if that went through. So you got to wonder whoever's going to be looking next at Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment, what happened. But they own Fenway Sports Park Sports owns a lot of teams now. So I mean, look.
Yeah, like the two biggest, for those that don't know, obviously, other than the Boston Red Sox, they also own Liverpool of the English Premier League.
And I think that's the way it's going to be now. I think you're going to have one ownership group dipping into multiple sports. You see it all over the place. Like same with Tony Khan. He's got the Jaguars, the family's got there, and then they're over. They have a soccer team in the UK as well. So I think that's just the way the sports world is going. I really don't see anything changing outside the fact that if the salary cap goes up, they could spend a little bit more and be a little bit more aggressive like the Red Sox are.
Yeah, and exactly. And it's not going to be surprising. One of the questions we have is, where do the Penguins sit in terms of value? As of the beginning of 2021, I believe they were in 11th or 10th or 11th of value, with the value of about $850 million. They were just outside the top 10. Which to me, as a Rust Belt city, a type of city as Pittsburgh is, that's a perfect spot. I don't expect them to be higher. Obviously, you have the range. I know the top 5 were Rangers, Maple Leafs, Canadiens, Blackhawks, and I believe Boston or the Kings were the top 5. Only 5 teams were valued at over $1 billion, so it's still a good spot for the Penguins. So they're getting. This is a hell of a different deal than when the Penguins were purchased for in '99. What was it? $100 million or $190 million or something like that. It wasn't a lot of money in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, and it was even less considering how much they owed Mario in the first place. So
yes,
I mean,
so a lot
there
of
was
that.
a deferred payment. There was a deferred payment plan. So
yeah, it was $107 million.
Yep,
man.
I just double checked. $107 million.
$107 million.
They were sold for.
19.4 of that was deferred to Mario in lieu of payment of what he was owed on his contract. So I mean, look, to sit there and go, okay, we got a valuation of $675, we get $900 for it. Wow, I mean that is just some kind of. I understand a lot of time has gone by, but still, that's just something that you go, okay, that's pretty darn good.
Exactly, and it's a team that if there's one sale, there's certain teams that when they get sold, we don't have to worry about. Penguins are one of those. I don't know why fans thought they might leave.
Yeah,
the NHL is entrenched in there. Even if Lemieux and Burkle were nothing a part of this, the NHL is entrenched in Pittsburgh. The NHL is entrenched in certain markets. I mean, if you saw what they're doing to try and keep hockey in the desert in Arizona. They're going to do what they can before relocation. That's one thing I will give the NHL credit for, to a fault, to a major fault. And it's whether, I don't care the reasoning behind it, whether it's to save face for Bettman or whatever it is. They do try and keep the teams as much as they can in the markets they're in. They tried with Atlanta, but that offer from Winnipeg and True North was just too good to where it's like, we're going to, okay, cool. And I mean,
let's face facts with Atlanta. It didn't work once. It wasn't going to work twice. not in that market, not with what was there. It was a football market first, SEC dominant, Georgia, all that stuff, college football. It just wasn't working there. And give credit to Bettman and Charles Wall working to make sure the Islanders stayed on Long Island and they have, and because of their efforts, they have that brand new beautiful building. So again,
exactly,
you don't want to credit him for certain things, but you have to give credit to the devil because what he's done to keep certain teams in certain markets, because that's the last thing they ever want to do is relocate.
Now, let's move on to the sad story we always seem to have to talk about, other than the Blackhawks and that mess, which we will get back to one of these weeks.
Breaking news real quick.
Yep.
Brandon Lemieux suspended 5 games for biting Bradykitchuk.
So there we go. Boom. Look at that. I said 5 to 7. Look at that.
There you go.
5. Look at that.
Yay!
Future weatherman, Mike Straw.
Hey, I'm close.
Yeah.
Hey,
I
nailed it.
So Lemieux, yeah, not surprising. We'll see what happens when he comes back. But yeah, that biting. Nope. NHL and COVID. I hate talking about this. I hate it. The league has said multiple times every player but one is vaccinated. Every current NHL player but one. We all know that one is Tyler Bertuzzi. Still questioning how he was allowed to play against the Buffalo Sabres in Buffalo a few weeks ago. Now, he scored 2 goals and ended up one of them being the game winner. So it's one of those, like, how is he allowed to play when no one's allowed in that arena without showing proof of vaccination? Just saying. If the fans can't go in, the players who are more close contact can't. No. But COVID, it doesn't matter, vaccine or not. It is still a problem, especially, and there are outbreaks. We've had the Islanders have to, we already knew about Ottawa and their issues. We see the Islanders now having to reschedule games. Boston, we just saw, I mean, it's not the NHL, but Sudbury in the OHL had to suspend operations because 12 players tested positive. Boston head coach Bruce Cassidy placed in protocol. 2 Carolina Hurricanes placed in protocol. It's everywhere where teams are dealing with this. I mean, we saw earlier in the season, the Sharks had to miss 7 regular players miss and taken out of the lineup, and they had to call up a bunch of AHLers just to fill out their roster so they didn't have to forfeit games or reschedule games. And it's just getting to be a terrible mess with the NHL, and they are scrambling, telling teams to cancel in-person events, like reach out community events, canceling any sort of team functions, parties, things like that around the holidays, making sure they don't leave hotels again when they're traveling, and really being on edge for a league that seemed to not care other than the players for the most part, on edge about this. And we all know why. Their only thought about this, the league, is clearly, well, we want to make sure we can still send players to the Olympics. We've talked about this ad nauseum. I think at least a dozen shows about how it's a terrible idea. If this keeps going, and they have to make a decision within the next few weeks, if this keeps going the way it is and everything's going, there's no way they can send them to the Olympics. Chris, you're the one holding up the charts. You're the
okay. This is the New Jersey chart, actually. So over the last few days now, look, there's numerous questions here and how that's later, but the bottom line number here is, as far as cases at least, a few days ago it was down to about 12 or 1,300 in New Jersey. We're now cranking out, at least as of this afternoon, almost 2,400 cases.
Nice.
That's not good.
No.
I mean, look, and to be perfectly honest, yeah, a vast majorities are mostly what you would call, very minor symptoms.
Yeah, asymptomatic. A lot of these, and the numbers show. And this isn't where we're going to get all political and go vaccine versus no vaccine. We're not those. This isn't the show.
It doesn't even matter at this point. People are still getting it.
You're still going to get it. It doesn't stop anything. Like, it doesn't 100% stop it. But whether it's asymptomatic, which a lot of these are, or very mild symptoms, which that's the point.
It's concerning.
It's still concerning that it's still spreading as easily as it is. And it's still scary. Let's be real, especially like myself with 2 small children who can't get vaccinated for it. But we see all this and the numbers are rising. The winter time and people are going to be indoors way more. It's good. And it's going up. And this is a league that needs to figure this out. Like, I don't know what else to say other than figure it out.
And we have to remember, for everybody that doesn't realize this last year, we were in November. What were we doing last year in November? Nothing.
Yeah.
We were doing nothing because the season had ended, a couple months before, and we were on break till January. Why were we on break till January, and why did things actually somewhat go halfway decently? Is because we didn't go through this period now where everybody was starting to be huddled inside for the holidays, because winter was coming. And now we're going through this for the first time. And look, I won't be surprised if other sports start to experience this more and more soon as well, or they haven't already. And it's just unfortunate that hockey seems to be the one that got nailed with this, first, for the lack of a better term. But no, it's not surprising in the least. I talked to a few players today, and they all said the same thing. It's like, look, we're worried about it. We're concerned. We're vaccinated. I do know that some players had a bit of a quote unquote, you don't want to say joking concern in all of this. It's like, well, we probably should avoid, like, I don't know, San Jose, Ottawa, etc., or Long Island. It was funny. It was funny to hear Mackenzie Blackwood ironically go, "Yeah, we just avoid a Long Island anyway." So, but you needed a little tongue-in-cheek humor today, given what's been going on over the past few weeks with everything, and sometimes we don't realize just how bad this is until we step away from it a little bit. And that's kind of what has happened with this wave again. And it's right around the same time, guys. I went to Vermont last October, right before that next wave hit. And by the time I came back, you could see where everything just went haywire. And that was the first kind of cold snap of the season. Almost like right on cue, like, okay, here we go. This is going to happen. And it's also true. That's something I wanted to bring up, guys, just because I've been talking to a couple of my friends from Dallas. Mari Cooper, for those that don't know, he's missed at least 2 games, and they don't even know when he's coming back. So, I mean, there's players that are we saw it last year, with Minnesota. Minnesota had a couple players and a certain top prospect who nearly died from COVID. So, we still have to be reasonably careful, and we have to follow. I hate to say this, guys. We have to do what we've been doing.
Yeah.
Whatever's been working, keep doing it.
And it sucks. Like when it comes, and I'm gonna say it. Even if you're vaccinated, wear your mask when you're around people who aren't in your circle. Like that's the biggest thing. Like the one thing this has shown me is that, one, you realize just I'm not gonna how selfish some people can be, but 2, that I don't think people understand how. No matter what happens, a virus is going to always find a way to spread. It's just how it's always going to be. The problem is we're in this situation is that we have a virus that is a lot more impactful on the human body than we've had in centuries.
It's true.
So it's one of those things of just we're going to have to continue to navigate this because Not everybody is on the same page. Not everybody will always be on the same page. That's what happens when you live in a country and a world with 7 billion people in a country with 365 million people in the United States. But it's not just the United States with this problem. It's everywhere. And I think every time there's a dip, right? I honestly feel, whether it's the NHL, whether it's the NFL, NBA, concert, whatever it may be, everybody gets into that lull, false sense of security, kind of like the eye of the storm of a hurricane. And we've had an eye of the storm. We have a hurricane that just keeps going like this, where we've hit the eye a couple times, and then the wall just comes and destroys us again.
Yeah, I mean,
It's true.
You look at it, you see like a lot of players around the league. I mean, one of the things I keep hearing out of Ottawa is that one of the big reasons why Matt Murray's going down to Belleville is to get his conditioning back, because he was hit hard by COVID going through that team. I mean, we don't know how hard some of these Islanders players are going to be hit by it. Some guys tested positive, they could be going through symptoms. I know the Sharks had a couple of players that went through symptoms. I mean, it took a while for the Vancouver Canucks last year for guys to get it out of their system. And these guys are professional athletes. And look, Mike, you made up a point about the NHL wanting to go. I don't think the NHL wants to go. I think the NHL is trying to save face with the NHLPA and the players, because the players want to go and negotiate it.
But at the end of the day, if it's not safe, you don't send them.
Yeah. Well, Chris and I were talking
through
about
the PA, to be honest. Like, right. I'm usually on the side of the players for everything, but no matter what, if
I've been, my opinion on this. I've been on the side that they shouldn't be going.
I think we all have, the three of us. Yeah.
Yeah. We've all been on the same page on this. I don't think they're going, and until they're there, that's my belief. And to be honest, the conversation needs to start now at, you know what, guys, we tried. We can't do it. Like, we'll give you something else in return, escrow, whatever. We can't do this safely because of what is going on. Plus, we're going to have an all-star game. Who decided that was a good idea? I have no idea. But that's a topic for another day.
That's something that needs to not happen too.
Right.
Yeah, now especially.
But, and now China is coming out and saying these guys you have to quarantine 2 weeks before to go. The NHL does not have time. 3 weeks.
If you get
especially
it,
with all these games having to be moved.
But I'm saying before you go over, they want you to
2 weeks before, and then 3 if you get it. Now, here's where it gets fun, guys. So imagine 3 weeks. Now, Lars Eller had to quarantine himself in a hotel for 10 days. And Samantha Pell, who is one of the better beat writers out there, period, she got pretty much an exclusive interview with him via Zoom, I think like about day 8 or 9 of his quarantine. And he said it after 4 days, he was going nuts. I mean, he ran out of things to do. He was lifting like, flower pot fixtures for weights because he got bored of lifting the regular weights that were in his room.
It happens.
This is where we're at. And you imagine athletes having to commit to quarantining themselves for 3 weeks in an Olympic village.
They're not the best places. Let's be real.
This isn't the Marriott Marquis in New York City. Where
we can get you an exercise bike, we can get you weights, we can get all of this stuff.
You're not getting that in China.
No, you're not. And I just don't think it's a good idea to be going to the Olympics. Not this year. Not with so much uncertainty. If you want to have, I spitballed this and it's never going to happen. But imagine they'd be like, look, you guys still want to have the Olympic tournament? Fine. IOC, all this stuff. We're playing it here. This is where we're playing it. You have a problem with that? Too bad. Because our guys want to go. But it's never going to happen. Personally, bag it. Wait till Italy. You'll be fine. Make it up with a World Cup somewhere. Just give them a concession.
Because hopefully, 4 years from now, we're okay. But, I mean, we might all be dead anyway. Who knows?
Darn it.
Oh, darn it.
Yeah, I'm tired of talking about it. we're going to have to keep talking about it.
It's just getting worse. It's just getting worse. You're going to see more teams shut down. And the San Jose Sharks should be really going to the league and be like, look, you shut the Senators down. You shut the Islanders down. You told us to play. They have a legit beef with the NHL right now.
100%. The only saving grace is that I think they don't do it is because I believe during that time they won most of those games.
Yeah, they did.
Isn't that the weird part about that?
If they would have lost, I guarantee you,
really
because winning solves
yeah.
everything. If they would have lost all those games, 100%, they'd be filing complaints with the league.
Oh, absolutely.
But I think during that like 4 or 5 game stretch, they went either 3-1-1 or 4-1 or something along those lines. So it's like, whatever. It just proves they got the depth, I guess.
Well, they also have, I mean, the Barracudas are right there, so they could be plucking from Barracudas all day. But that's something the Bruins can't be doing because the Providence Bruins are shut down.
Yeah,
there's, and that's where there were other logistical problems. Like, Bridgeport was starting to have a few cases. Ottawa, their AHL team started to have a few cases here and there. I mean, and then Ottawa, of course, got to that magic number of 10. And we don't want to say that too often on the air, but it's there. It's the reality. There's definitely an NHL threshold. Along with other circumstances, and they hit that main one, and it was ding, shut it down.
Yeah.
Should they have shut it down sooner?
Yeah,
probably. I mean, that's the Captain Obvious statement of this show and its entire existence. Yeah, they absolutely should have shut it down sooner. But again, damn it, I'll say this. I can finally use this line. Damn it, Jim, I'm not a doctor.
No, exactly.
It's like most of the information I've been fortunate enough to get are from other doctors and nurses that I've come into contact with because of working with, the Devils and the media and the fact that they've been so gracious about it.
Yeah, I just don't. It's tough to even predict where it goes from here. It's obviously getting worse before it gets better. The hope is that we'll still have some hockey to talk about. Some teams have gotten really lucky, and that's what it is. And sometimes you got to be lucky. Luck be a social distancer tonight, I guess.
Yeah.
I just don't know where to go from there. But you know where to go, guys. You can follow all three of us on the Twitter at Jim Behringer, at Chris Wassel DFS, and at Mike Straw Media. Make sure you are following Full Press Hockey at Full Press NHL. Follow us on twitch.tv/Full Press Coverage. Follow us on YouTube Full Press Coverage. Make sure you turn on notifications. However, you need to be alerted to when we have our shows every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. As always, for Chris and Jim, I'm Mike. Take care of yourselves, treat everyone well, and we'll see you next week.